useful for all of us. Again, we are waiting for Zafar. He just gave me a call apologizing that he's late, but he's coming. Before we start, just a couple of announcements. So we are planning a coffee break, but I think we better do the session, and probably it's going to last an hour, a little bit more than an hour, after which we really encourage everyone to stay for a coffee break so we can continue with the networking session. Because as we say here at Team University, it's all about networking, it's all about meeting new people, not just knowledge. Otherwise you could sit at home and watch it via YouTube, right? So, if again, good evening everyone, and we just consulted with Andrew, and we thought that this has to be very interactive, since we have a very cozy group of people, around 15 people. It's a great chance for us to give you a microphone and allow you to introduce yourself as well. But we will obviously start with our guests. I will ask my assistants, probably I will be switching to Uzbek when necessary. Ibrat, значит, mikrofon bittasini mehmonlarimizga ham ajratsanglar, ular ham o'zligini tanishtirishlarini qilishadi. So, let me start introducing our guests and then switch to the audience. But first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Hikmat Abdurrahmanov. I am one of the co-founders and the CEO of this university. And let me start with Andrew Wachtel, who is the chairman of the board of trustees, a person whom I know for a few years, but already really excited that I'm working with him within this project. But I've heard a lot about him, read on Wikipedia, and I think we are really lucky to have Andrew Wachtel as the chairman of the board of trustees. Andrew lives in Bishkek, and he has been the rector and the president of American University of Central Asia in Bishkek for many years. He also worked in Almaty as the rector of Narhoz University. It's an analog of our Narhoz, but it was privatized. Before that, he has spent many years working in leading universities in the United States, including Northwestern University, being a dean, plus studied and worked at, and Andrew will correct me if I'm wrong, in Stanford, Berkeley, and Harvard University. So we're really excited to have him, and obviously the whole luggage of knowledge that he and experience that he has. So let's greet Andrew Wachtel. The next guest whom I'm very honored to introduce is Henry Myerberg, who is one of our key guests and with whom we have spent the last 3 days. Kidding, Muhammad.
It feels like 4 days.
It 2 weeks, Henry, because it was really rewarding. We really enjoyed. I personally learned a lot about architecture, about planning higher education institutions from Henry. So Henry Myerberg is an architect from New York and the founder of HMA2 Architects company. Henry has been working in the architecture field for more than 40 years. So you know that rule of 10,000 hours, right? Do you know have you heard about the rule of 10,000 hours? When you can consider yourself as a professional if you have spent 10,000 hours in one field. So yesterday, out of curiosity, we were sitting in the car and calculating how much Henry spent in the field of architecture and projecting and developing projects and buildings in higher education, in education field. And we counted 120,000 hours. So that's 12 times more than just a regular professional.
12,
so
12
Henry was a regular lecturer in Columbia and Harvard University, being a graduate of UPenn and Harvard, has spent 40 years in architecture, has participated actively in more than 40 educational projects, and it's exciting to have him here helping us in building and projecting our campus, hopefully, of Team University. So let's greet Henry. As the next guest, we have my colleague here at the university, and a friend, and a person whom probably everyone knows in this audience, and not only, is Zafar Hashimov, who is the co-founder of Team University, but also co-founder of Korzinka chain, RedTag, Flow, and recently we have heard the news about Lebazar, but obviously many knew, but now it became very public. But I know that Zafareke also helps a lot of young projects to develop, and it's definitely his passion. I'm referring to education, and let's greet Zafareke being part of this panel. Last but not least, we have a wonderful person who is a bit less experienced, but definitely I can say that a talented architect who joined our team with the task of building a campus. I am referring to Ibrahim Dusmukhammedov, who is the part of Big Star Architects. He graduated from our architectural institute, but decided to continue this journey of education, and now is studying in Vienna. He is doing his master's in the field of architecture, and he is one of our key persons who is participating and developing the projects of our future campus. So let's greet Ibrahim as well. So without further ado, I would like to open it up with the topic of how to build a perfect campus. And this says an open panel discussion. And my colleagues agreed that we will provide the microphone to each participant for a quick introduction, so we would not really delay the process of networking, and we would understand from which field you are coming from and what is your interest to this topic. So, Noderbek, пожалуйста, подайте микрофон. So my colleagues would be passing the microphone, and I would I would like to ask Shradeke to start, since I know him for quite a while. A person who's spent many years in the field of education. Noderbek, микрофон, пожалуйста. Please introduce yourself and pass the mic to the next guest.
Except the mic is not on. Можно включить?
By the way, we are being recorded to the YouTube. If you don't mind, we have a very nice YouTube channel, Team University's YouTube channel. We would like this wonderful discussion to be shared, if you don't mind, on the YouTube channel. So later on, it will be placed on YouTube as well. Please.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, my name is Ibrahim. I did my more than 3,000 hours mostly in education. A little bit of about ICT, mostly about education and about public governance, working in different government structure. But right now I'm almost free of government and doing my independent project together with colleagues from the world about public education, delivering electronic resources to the public education, creating multimedia resources for all the small children from 3rd grade to 11th grade, and it's just a step.
Let's try this one. No, this one doesn't work yet.
You still have to maybe put it on.
He's got dying microphones. Maybe people just stand with this. We don't really need a microphone here, I gotta say.
I have worked in different spheres, in higher education, so I worked in different universities, and in the institute also, but right now I'm trying to improve education from the level, the school classes. I believe in great potential of children all around the world, and I believe that we have to give them opportunities to study, and I believe they will use the best of it. Sorry, talking to myself.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Prof. I'm with HMA2 Architect, engineering and design company, consulting company. I'm an engineering business unit head. I have more than 10 years of project management, engineering in urban, residential, oil and gas, and energy sector. So I'm really interested in architecture part of this discussion. Good evening, everyone. My name is Prof. I am the Professor of Pedagogy. I'm an energy efficiency and HVAC engineer. I've been working in this field for 4 years.
previous and Academy of Science of Uzbekistan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Prof. I'm the managing director of Energy. I founded this company in 2015 in London and in Uzbekistan. We specialize on energy topics and sustainability. We do both consultancy and engineering design. Thank you.
Please keep the microphone closer. I apologize that there are some technical issues with that.
My name is Ibrahim Dusmukhammedov. My main introduction is that I am a student of Professor Wachtel and graduate of American University of Central Asia. Nowadays, I am currently serving as visiting professor at National State University of Law, where I am teaching the technology law related modules. And we got a chance to study at the first sustainable campus, which was American University of Central Asia. So I think that today I am here to give user perspective. After discussion, I will try to contribute if there will be a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So quick introduction from you colleagues sitting on the stairs, and then we'll move on. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ibrahim. I'm representing Juro Energy. I'm an active head of the power generation. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Uzbekistan. I'm from Civil Corporation Research, and looking forward to this discussion. Thank you.
Introduce yourself. Yeah.
Hey, hi, my name is Aydana and I'm Industry Relations Officer of Team University.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Azbek and I'm the student of Team University. And I study IC2 for university.
Good evening, everyone. I'm also the student, foundation student here in this university.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Aziz. I study in Transport University in Tashkent, and I'm interested to know more about Team University.
Good evening. My name is Prof. Currently I'm a student, and nowadays I was thinking about doing architecture, and it's honored to me to meet, I would say, legend people like you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, colleagues. Now we have overall understanding of the backgrounds of the participants. So just to summarize, we have students, we have colleagues from Team University, but we also have independent consultants, entrepreneurs, people from the energy sector, from education field, people who are interested in education field, people who are working in international organizations. So it is quite various, and it's great that we will have multi-layered discussion. But coming back to the topic of how to build a perfect campus, the topic probably which really gives us the direction that we will be talking about education, but we will be also talking about architecture, about planning spaces, about how to create, how Henry put it, communities. So I would like to pass the floor to our guests and our panelists, and probably give us the context of what do you think about the topic. Probably you would spend 3 minutes, yeah, just again to give a little bit of the context, maximum 5, to really share your views about how to build and whether it is necessary to build great campuses, whether education is really about how campus really influences the quality of the education, what is the international experience in this field, and some, let's say, conclusions and assumptions for Uzbekistan. Please, Henry.
Thank you very much. Now I had a bunch of slides to show. I'm going to go through them so super quick because I think this whole session is really about interaction. And in fact, I'm just going to go to one slide. I have about 20 slides. I'm just going to go to one slide. So here's how quick it'll be. All right, I love being here. I've never been to the Silk Road. I've never been to Tashkent. I love being here. This is awesome. Next. How should a teaching learning function, how should a teaching learning campus function and feel? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Next. But these are 3 things that I think any university, any place of teaching and learning wants to do with. You can read it. Next. But what I've learned over the years is what I'm interested in trying to share. Next. Next. What I've learned from other educators is that the function of learning and what students learn best in collaborative settings, who doesn't know that? Who doesn't know that the best learning often occurs outside of class? And what attracts other students is students. Next. What is the feeling, though, you get from that? That's what I'm interested in learning and understanding more about. Students learn best in collaborative settings because it feels welcoming. It's dynamic when you learn outside of class. It's a sense of belonging when you feel attracted to other people. The spaces that they want to have are flexible, connectable, and visible, very much like this space here, okay? So I don't need to explain it other than to show that this space has that quality to it. It's flexible, it's visible. You can see other people, you can see what other things are going on. It's connected to other spaces and it's there. That's what makes a learning place. That's what makes not necessarily a perfect campus, because perfection is the enemy of good as an expression. And the outcome from a flexible, connectable, visible spaces are, next, own, activate, and participate. That's what you want to end up feeling. And very much like an entrepreneurship aspects. So this is a really summary slide. Slide on the left, typical, traditional hallway, classroom. This is what we did at the American University of Central Asia. It's visible, it's flexible, and connectable spaces. Very much akin to this area here. That's what makes a perfect campus, is working towards that. Something that feels in that way, where it doesn't feel closed off. You can see what's going on. You can feel a part like belonging to somewhere. And you know what? I'm going to conclude with that. Because I think that's the sort of essence of everything. All right, there are other slides. Let's move on. I don't know why, it's now just background music. What I'd really love to do is just sort of, is really hear from you guys and hear from our panelists, about some of this subject. Is there anything else that would be useful?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Henry. So we will definitely go back to some of the visuals you've shown or some of the assumptions and bullets you have provided, but then we discussed it with you just an hour ago as well, that although it seems to be quite obvious, yeah, those bullet points really look quite intuitively right, but again, how to really express them and how to create spaces that really equal or that really help to create this kind of space. How do you do that usually? That's the question.
Well, the thing is that it's really, in the simplest way, we draw them. I mean, this is kind of what an architect, does. But it's really about this kind of conversation with people like yourselves, people who are using the space, and understanding what their needs are, what the aspirations are. It's not about imposing, oh, here is a vision of a space, or here's a vision of a learning place. It's very much reflective of the needs and uses of the audience, and also about the place it's in. I think one of the things that we're thinking about, let's say with this particular campus, is that whatever it looks and feels like, it can only be here in Tashkent, only be on this site. It can only be for this community.
Yeah.
It doesn't belong anywhere else. Anything, and that's the sort of thing, a learning space needs to be special to the location and the people it's working with.
Great. Henry, thank you very much. I definitely would like to go back to our conversation about perfect campuses, but before we do that, I would like to pass the mic to Andrew and really share your personal experience of being in that process of building. I know that you have done it from scratch together with Henry in Bishkek, but how difficult it is to create a successful campus?
All right, well, first of all, even before we talk about creating a campus, we need to say that a campus is an important thing for a university to have, but it's not the most important thing for a university to have. I mean, obviously, what happens inside the campus is massively more important than the campus. You can have the most beautiful set of buildings, the most wonderful land, the most sort of perfect setting, and if the teaching is lousy and if the students are bored, it doesn't make any difference. And conversely, you can have a terrible building with, you know, it just looks bad, it doesn't feel comfortable, but if it's exciting enough inside, a great amount of learning is going to happen there. So a campus in the end is something that is really great to have, but it's not the most important thing for a university to have. And unfortunately in the United States, and in other places as well, people, as we say in English, put the cart before the horse often. All they care about is building beautiful buildings, and they never think about, well, what's going to happen inside the buildings? Who's going to be inside the buildings? What are they going to do inside the buildings? Why do they want to be inside of the buildings? Right? So when we try to plan, first we have a university. Right? That's the first thing you have to have. And you have to have an understanding of what you're trying to accomplish in that university, because different universities have different goals and different universities have different needs. So in the United States, at a university like Northwestern, where I was for 19 years, which is a huge research university with a research budget probably of close to $1 billion a year, you know, there we needed some really complicated scientific labs that only a very few people would ever go into, and most students would never have anything to do with, but we needed that for the university. That's not needed at a university like Team, which is a completely different feeling and a completely different set of goals. So you start, and this is what we did with Henry at AUCA, where I will say, at AUCA, I'm not sure how many of you were there when the original campus, but the original campus of AUCA was horrible. It was this old Stalin building. It was the main headquarters of the Communist Party of Kyrgyzstan. And it had this wonderful, in a way, Soviet sort of oppressive feeling about it. The rooms were small and they were cramped and the furniture was terrible and it was dark. But there was an incredible energy that came from the students and the faculty. And when Henry first came to that campus, he said, oh my God, this is a horrible building. But then he said, wow, there's so much going on here. There's so much energy. And also, the Ministry of Education thought that we could have like 400 students in that building, and we had 900 students in that building. And it was incredibly crowded. There were too many students. But because there were so many students, they were running into each other all the time. They were talking to each other. We put a little sofa down, and there were 4 students lying over the top of the sofa talking to each other because there was no place else to sit. And what we said with Henry was, on our new campus, which is going to be bigger, of course, we need to somehow keep that feeling of energy and keep that feeling of people interacting with each other. We don't want to create a huge spread out campus where no one will see each other, which is very expensive to build, which is very expensive to maintain. We want a small footprint where people have to be pushed together. So we made certain decisions, like in the US, for example, if a faculty member doesn't have his or her own separate office with a door they can lock, the world comes to an end and everybody screams and yells, and we said no separate offices. Faculty should be in group offices where they can talk to each other. They can't lock the door. They can't hide from their students, which of course they want to do. So, you know, don't let that happen. So we built a campus that met the needs of the existing university, but it was already a kind of functioning university that had an idea. And so when we came here now for this week, working with Zafar and with Hikmat and with the other members of the founders, we said, don't rush to build a campus. You can survive in this building for years. Yes, in a few years, maybe it will be crowded. Right now there's not enough students in this building. I'm sure the students who are here will say it's kind of feels a little bit empty because there's only 175 students in this building. By next year, we hope there'll be 350 students, and then 500. 500 is going to be getting to be a little bit dicey. But, okay, let them squeeze in, let them learn, let them interact. And then as we really see what the needs are, and as we really have a strong personality of the university, it will be so much easier to design the perfect campus, which, as Henry says, is only the perfect campus for Team University. It wouldn't be the perfect campus for some other university, right? So, but we don't know what that perfect university is, perfect campus is, until we know what the real personality of Team is going to be. So that's our goal, is to help Team University through the build. I mean, as we do the planning, and we do have to do the planning starting now, but using the planning not as like, some abstract thing, like there should be a pyramid because, you know, the pharaoh thought there should be a pyramid, but we think there's going to be this kind of activity. You know, then we talk to the dean and the students, and do you want that kind of activity? Do you need that kind of activity? Do you like having an amphitheater here in your room? Are you going to use it? Well, maybe you're not going to use it. If you're not going to use it, we're not going to build it, right? So those are the kinds of questions that we want to ask, ultimately to come to some feeling that now we have the campus that we really need. Because, as you know, it's a pretty big investment, and if you build what you don't want, that's a tragedy. Being stuck in a slightly overcrowded building that isn't perfect, that's not a tragedy. That's an inconvenience. But spending $6 or $7 million to build a pyramid when what you needed was the Parthenon, that's a problem. So the perfect campus is the one you need. And what you need takes a while to figure out.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Inspiring as usual. So we were actually going through the stairs with Andrew, and he kind of made a joke, but then I realized that he was not joking when he said, hey, you can actually place a couple of containers over there. I said, why? We would be teaching there. That's what he said. So what he was saying is that we have a piece of land that we bought. But again, as what Henry said and Andrew said, that experimenting, doing those iterations, really trying, making mistakes, but doing that in a safe environment, like you know how we do it usually in entrepreneurship. And that was really exciting to hear that, because, and I'm sure that Zafareke will now share that we were thinking that we have to rush, we have to run, and we have to do that. Otherwise, we will not be on time for the growth of the university and when students would be coming to this campus. Zafareke, you have developed, financed dozens of warehouses, supermarkets, and I know that even educational institution. Yeah. So, what would be your take? What would be your thoughts about Perfect Campus? What would be your comments on what colleagues said, please?
Yeah, thank you. Yesterday, actually, we were talking with Andrew about, there are a lot of places like restaurants in the town, not only in Tashkent but elsewhere also. You come there, it's all made of crystal, gold, and a nice marble, and you ask for food and it's crap. You know, like that, and the service is lousy, and then you think that okay, that part of building was easy part, you know. On that I do support what Andrew was saying, that content is more important than form. However, if we talk about building campus, I am not big specialist on that, really. Even the Erudite International School, which we have affiliation with, like, you know, it's a normal school, but the building was already built when we bought it. It wasn't built kind of by a research in which I would participate anyway. It's good school, and it was done good, but I don't know how. And again, I don't know whether it's architecture or content which makes this school so popular. But coming back to, let's say, to what I know is, let's say, when we were supermarket, in a number of cases, when we come, we already have the structure, and we have to actually fit in it to this. And honestly, I hate it. I hate it when I'm already put in a kind of walls, bearing walls. You cannot take this, you cannot touch this, and of course you have to be very creative with that, but it is very challenging. But when we first started to do like greenfield projects, I loved it because, you know, we were building things around the processes the way we do when you start this. So, and here we have a great opportunity to build the thing around the way we do things, like around our mission, vision, around our, you know, what we see as our goals, how, around our customs. You know, it's actually, and it is good that we have this place now here to really formulate, and it's only second year, we don't have much, like, you know, we are just acquiring habits, we just acquiring how we should do and how we shouldn't do, and in that thing, I think I really supported yesterday also Andrew to say, like, we have to learn ourselves. We have to learn how the flow of processes are, and what do we need, like, you know, what is the proportion of, let's say, shared social spaces and the classroom laboratories and let's say, faculty and administrative premises, etc. And that's how I think the successful venues made. Because you know, the building should be built around university, not university squeezed into a building somebody thought it's wise to build. So, and universities are, in my opinion, because I've been to quite a few of them, you know, I went to my first university in 1985. It was Tashkent State University. It was actually a good building, but most of it was that corridors with the classrooms. But again, you know, we had really, I would say, fantastic teachers at. We had fantastic teachers, professors. They're legends now. Yeah, Professor Sirajdeen of Saramsakov, Shavkat Aripov, Professor Farmanov, etc. And they were like legends, you know, like we were like anywhere in the world you could find their books, you know. So they were like, and they were like, you know, it was like for me as a math student. I felt proud sitting in one room with them, you know, like in auditorium where they would be doing their lectures. So and then I also did my course and diploma work at Moscow State University. So and it is completely different. And then I went to UK to university, which was absolutely different. And honestly, like, I find them all great universities, nonetheless that they were so much different. And because of that, I think that important thing is about the fire which is inside. Note this, and on that I would say, like, there is English saying that houses are built of clay and stone, and home is made from love alone. Yeah, like I might be maybe wrong about wording, but it was something like that. So it is about love inside. Yeah, so which makes university. It is a faculty, it is students, and I really like, you know, we come here. I come here like once, twice a week, and I have my lectures. And I feel excited, you know. And honestly, and another thing I wanted to say, universities are the place, like social places. It is not where people come and listen, professor, and go home. And we learn by this social interaction, by networking, much more than maybe in like sitting still in our classrooms and listening someone telling us something important. And for that, I mean, we talked even before, like 2 years ago, I think, year and a half ago with Hikmat. We said, like really, like, you know, we want to have, we thought, like, you know, we were thinking, like, we were very ambitious, like, you know, again, as an entrepreneurs, we wanted to have, I don't know, 500-600 students in the first year. And we were then thinking, won't it be too crowded? And I remember, like, we were talking about this, shall we hire or rent somewhere else, another campus, another this, if we get 500? And I think we unanimously then decided that let it be. We want to have 500, 1,000. We were even scheduling how we can fit 1,000 or 1,500 in this. Honestly, this is a very ambitious. Like we just wanted to be there next year, and then, like, you know, we are learning a lot, and that's great. I do believe that we want custom fit building, campus, facilities, premises, which fits us. There is no one size fits all in a campus, and each campus is very individual. And honestly, I never seen two exactly the same building universities, but I am not very much expert, but I mean, the universities are so different, and so their campuses are. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Zaharaka. I would like to pass the floor and microphone to a person who probably was feeling so much pressure from different parties and was really challenged, because Ibrahim, as many probably local other architects, had limited or no experience of building universities, and we have noticed that experience is not yet there, but what we have noticed that there was a passion and there was a desire to learn. And Ibrahim, so my questions to you would be, sitting and studying in Vienna, doing your masters, but before that you were here, and we have been collaborating less than a year now, but you have been exchanging some thoughts with business people on one side, faculty members on the other side, and now with big experts on the third side. So Ibrahim is really spending 3 days non-stop, face-to-face with Henry and Andrew, and I'm seeing that he's absorbing a lot of information. So please share what were the most difficult moments within these 7 months, and how different in your experience so far educational buildings, how different they are from the regular commercial buildings and others. Please share your thoughts.
I would say when you start a project to design a new job, every time I think Mr. Myerberg will support me in this idea. When you're starting a new job, it's always different and it's always new, something new, and that's because clients always demanding, their demand is different, and their point of view is different, and environment you're building, designing a building is different. And referring to your question, was it hard to absorb? No, for me, these past 3 days were extremely useful. I mean, when you're studying at the university, you may have just I don't know a couple of hours in total with one professor, and now we're having I don't know almost 40 hours non-stop with Mr. Meyerberg, and I really appreciate it, and that's a great chance to learn from him.
Yeah, so the second question was how educational institutions or buildings differ from regular projects that you have done before that.
Yeah. They're extremely different. The things we have, the problems we have, we need to solve are different. I studied here in several places, and I'm now studying in other place. And since I spent my education time, learning time alongside with other designers and architects. They think out of the box, and they don't try to. They're non-conformist atmosphere in there. But I've seen a lot of commonalities between being a designer, being an architect, and being a student in entrepreneur university, or being an entrepreneur. I would say all this time I studied in that kind of old style buildings with the corridors. But since we were creative persons, we just visited some other studios to hang out. But in this project, for Team University especially, our mission, I think, is to provoke and, how to say, stimulate people to naturally stimulate people to spend more time with each other, to communicate, to get know each other, and find people who have the same values and same vision for your business, for your life, for your for your projects, and make some kind of friendly and very social place which will contribute your future. And that's a huge responsibility for us when we're designing such kind of buildings, not just in front of the clients who are board members or co-founders or academic staff. There's a responsibility in front of the students who are attending this university, because they're gonna spend some other 4 or 3 years at the institution that we are designing, at the place, at some kind of home, the shelter that we are designing for you. And that's the difference between retail or, let's say, a home. Because at home you have more or less look-alike layout of the rooms and or any other place. So yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Ibrahim. So when we were preparing for this panel discussion, I personally thought that this is quite a unique set of people, because someone is coming from a huge educational background. Someone is coming from a background in architecture, and again international. One panelist has a huge entrepreneurial experience, and Ibrahim is really a young specialist, but I think he is having a very interesting experience as well within this project. So we thought that we should share this experience. We should try to discuss how we are going, because again, being one of the first private projects, educational projects in the country, we have, I think, quite a big responsibility. It's not about being successful for ourselves. It's really about setting the precedent for the country. You all know that for almost 30 years, there was a big mistrust towards private sector entering higher education. And when we started, we realized that if we fail, if we completely fail, that's going to be a very bad sign for the whole private sector. So we really felt that huge responsibility on our shoulders. Although we say that making mistake is fine, hopefully everyone and all other stakeholders would think the same in our society.
Coming back to the topic, and here I would like to really turn the microphones to our audience, and I'm sure you have some questions, comments, and they're really welcome. But before doing that, I really wanted to say that I personally believe that space is a huge factor of success. We have been designing spaces in our co-working spaces in Ground Zero. Some of you know about our co-working spaces. And we have seen how a rightly designed space can create miracles. If you have walls on each side, and as we have been working for decades in our business center, classical buildings, and at one, like within one, let's say, change, if you create open spaces, if you allow people to meet and create reasons for them to interact more, as Ibrahim said, you would realize that there are people actually meeting each other more. They know their names. They start collaborating. One person will be a programmer, another one would be a designer, a third person would be, let's say, an investor. So I think in higher education, creating a right space would really bring a different outcome. And we have talked about this with Andrei Evgenievich Volkov, who is also part of our member, who is part of our board, who used to be the rector of Skolkovo Business School, and their space is also really great. So what I want to say is that yes, we have initial space here, and we are trying to create that ideal environment for our students to develop their soft skills, to be able to work in teams, have social areas where they can informally interact. So that in your slide, that the most learning really comes out of the classroom, yeah? And that's something which is not really obvious to a lot of institutions in Uzbekistan. They think that learning is in the classroom when professor is giving the knowledge. That definitely is part of learning, but I think in 21st century, the global economy and global competition really imposes us to be a little bit of different people with the developed soft skills, being able to network, being able to pitch your own ideas in the society. So yeah, that's too much of me. So who has questions or comments with regards to our topic and discussion? Please.
I would like to ask a question from Henry and maybe Andrew. In your experience, how can you design a campus that can serve the need of the university for long term? Not just today, the next couple of years, but especially the fast changing environment.
One word, flexibility. But just to, I don't have to sort of elaborate too much on that.
Well, I mean, look, there's a few things you can say. First of all is, how long do universities live for? A long time, longer than us, right? So no one really says, oh, I know how, the Harvard University campus is going to work 100 years from now. I mean, no one ever said that. And in a lot of ways, when universities are there for a long time, things don't work so well. You're stuck with, as Zafar says, I lived in a dormitory as a freshman at Harvard. You wouldn't want to live in that dormitory. It was a complete and total nightmare. Because it had been built in like 1920 and nobody had ever done anything to it because they didn't have time and they built new buildings. But nobody cared because actually it was well designed in the sense that it put people together and it was not too big. And so there were some good things about it. And so part of it is also this like, the perfection is the enemy of the good. If you knocked it all down and then rebuilt everything, then 50 years later or 20 years later, it doesn't work again. So you can't just keep doing that. So some things just, you adapt, and they're not perfect, but you work with them. And then eventually you say, no, that can't live, and you get rid of it. The one thing that we've just said to our colleagues here is enough space. So the good university campuses are ones, in most cases, where they were smart enough, early enough, to buy enough land so that they could later expand when they needed to, because you have to do that. And so sometimes you can have too much. I taught at Stanford for a number of years, and the Stanford campus, I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's just too big. they have, you know, thousands of hectares of land. And the campus is so spread out that the students, it's a problem. I mean, to get from one class to another, you have to get on a bicycle and ride for 20 minutes to get to your next class. It's not ideal. And some you know, you might want to be more, but still, it's an asset that they have, and as they expand, they need it, right? And other places like NYU or Columbia in New York, which are constrained by being in a big city, this is a huge planning problem for campuses like that. They really have to think really seriously about how to use every square meter of the space, because they don't have any more and they're not going to get any more. So I think that sort of making sure you have a long-term planning process, and one of the things that we've been doing with Henry over the last few days is thinking about how can we provide team not with so here's the next building you should build, because we don't know that yet, but here's some steps you could take to be over the next 10 to 15 to 20 years to create the spaces which we will then fill with stuff. We don't know what that stuff will look like, because as you say, teaching might be very different 10 years from now, and maybe students will no longer come to class at all, but they'll still come to the university to do projects, talk to each other, have lunch, but the professor will sit at home with his legs up in front of the fire and tape the lectures in advance and talk to them by some, you know, beaming device where they're in 3D in front of him, who knows. And we can't know what all those things will look like, but we can say, okay, if we have enough space to play with and we don't get too hemmed in, and we can create a space where people want to come, because in the end, it's about interacting with people, which I think is what everybody said. So if you're too hemmed in, then you can't interact, and if you're not hemmed in enough, you can't interact. So we need to create these places where people want to be, and then if you put smart and talented people together in one place, good things will happen. Either it's because some great lecturer is in front of them and inspires them, or because they just talk to each other and they're inspired, or because they're all doing something, a project together. It doesn't matter. As long as you concentrate people together, that's what you need. So the campus has to create that possibility. That's what I would say. Now, long term, I mean, look, you look at Oxford's campus, right? I mean, it's been there for 1,000 years almost. No one planned it, right? They bought this and they built that and it's other thing, and it's kind of cool actually, but it's pretty unplanned, but somehow it seems to work. Though if you try to live there, not so good.
Anyway, that's a great elaboration on the word flexibility, by the way. But I just also want to leave just, you know, in the thought, because I was thinking, listening to these other conversations, and I think your point is flexibility is not just of the space, it's also of the people. And it's also the pedagogy. And there are three ingredients to a university, you know, or teaching and learning. Hello? There are three key ingredients. I'll try this one. Okay, how's that? Same. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to walk like this, okay? That's how it's working. Three ingredients: people, pedagogy, and place. You need all of those together, working together. It's a harmonious relationship, and they each need each other to do the best they can. And I think that's what Andrew was saying at the beginning. You can have a cruddy place, but you have great people, but great things happen. When you have a great place and great people, even greater things are going to happen. So how do you bring the pedagogy and the place and the great people together? And so Team University, they have a special mix of pedagogy. They have a special mix of people who want to come here because of what it's offering. So we have a responsibility to kind of create the place, the special place that reflects that. So it's all working together. And of course, there are also timeless aspects about place. Place is very powerful. And so never underestimate the power of place, and never underestimate the power of people, and never underestimate the power of pedagogy in learning. So that's the thing. It's a respect for all those ingredients and bringing them all together so they all be the best they can be.
It's like a continuation of this topic probably. Just want to know from Hikmat, maybe from Katarina, what is your metric or the success of the team university? How you understand that? Yes, we did it. Because that's the main driver of the design actually for architectural part. Because if you are going to increase the number of students who are studying, this is another goal. And
I think that's a great question, and interestingly, although for the couple of years we talk a lot about mission, vision, and values in Uzbekistan, especially in business. I don't know in other fields, but in business we talk about that a lot, and I think that's really important. My first interaction with these questions was about 10 years ago when I was in USA on a program, IVLP program, and we had so many sessions, and the first thing that American business people and people who hosted us, they asked us a question: what is the purpose in general? What are you doing? Why are you doing this in your business? And from 2011 and onwards, me and my colleagues, we started to ask this question right from the beginning, before starting a business. So gladly, when we started doing this together with Zafaraka, and we were just giving an interview to repost.uz, that already we have a team of 10 people who are founders. It's not just me and Zafaraka, it's already a university that has been established by a business community. That's something that makes us stand out. And that's not a coincidence, because what we see as our vision, and we are trying to crystallize it, that we have ambitions to become one of the best private universities in Central Asia. And we're working with Ulug'bek Haji Ahmedov, who is a strategist and who is helping us to really crystallize the deadlines. He was asking the question, okay, when do you want to reach that goal? So it's not just a vision without endless deadlines. So we kind of coming up to a deadline of, by 2030, we definitely want to be one of the best universities in Central Asia. So when we are quoted, when we see that we have a caliber of graduates, caliber of faculty members who are really shining in the whole Central Asia, that would be the signs that we are achieving our goals. But then Ulug'bek Haji Ahmedov said, come on guys, you are the leading business people in Uzbekistan. That is not enough. Be more ambitious. So we are now trying to set, and again, this has to be discussed with founders and the board, but preliminarily, we're thinking by 2050 to be a world-class institution. So we want to compete with players in the whole world. Again, that might be very ambitious, but he says that vision has to be ambitious, even more ambitious than you might potentially think. So I think we all have the feeling that Team University is a successful institution when people, the whole society would be talking about that, knowing about that, and getting the benefits through the graduates, through the research, through interactions and contributions that Team University does to the whole country. Because I think one of the signs and definitions of entrepreneurial university, when you cooperate with the local and regional economies. So you don't just isolate yourselves with theoretical and academic work, you really feel that you are working in partnership with the whole economy, local economy. Maybe Zafarika will add a couple of words, please.
Yeah, we are entrepreneurs, and entrepreneur in Hikmat telling we have to be best in Central Asia and the world, and I respect that. But I just wanted to say that it's a lot of measurement to what is the best university. You know, it's not just by ratings, by I don't know whatever. I really honestly think that we will be always measured by our graduates. You know, like my reason for coming into this university as a founder and participant was, you know, we are in business, we interact with other people in business, with our employees, with the managers and employees of our partners, and we clearly see that we could do with more knowledgeable, skilled, and I would say, people who can be creative, who can be smart enough to come with solutions. And when we are telling like to come with solutions, it's not necessarily like in this subject or that. It is the people who actually can be thinkers, risk takers, explorers, you know, like, and when we, and I really look forward to our graduates who go and set up businesses, and they will have a, I would say, vision, not just limited to kind of, it's the people who will have a vision to develop their small business to a big, honestly, I'm tired, like, you know, we are very ambitious, and as Hikmat says, we are, let's say, we are by some margin best retailer in this, and we actually want our partners to grow. And let's say someone produces good biscuits, you come and they say, look, your biscuits are good, you have to grow, and they could do product, but they don't have a clue how to grow, you know, like, and then you see, like, you know, entrepreneurs do need this, you know. I'm like, you know, I send them books, audio books, and inspire them, like, you know, Hershey's story, you know, Mars's story, you know, like, and how Cadbury grown, you know, like, just tell them, go get ambitious to this, and sometimes people lack this kind of vision and ambition, and I don't know what, it's a lot of, so what I think, like, it is important for us to have our graduates, for them to be kind of very self-fulfilled, and like, you know, and have a kind of, like, you know, vision, like, which is aligned with the modern business, who can be learners for whole their life, who could adopt and change and succeed. And if our students would be really fulfilled and successful, and it's not only like success measured in, I don't know, in what rating on Forbes he has or this, it's success of people who are happy, who are, like, I would say, complete. And we help them with this. I don't know, but we, I mean, university, we, not we directly, is faculty, their network, their fellow students, friends, etc. And we changed this life, we changed these people to, when I say we, again, I talk about whole university, change this. I mean, I would think like we managed to reach what we wanted. Thank you.
The thing you have to keep in mind is there are lots of ways you can measure this, right? So, and you'll make some choices. So, for example, you could say, do we want to have a lot of students? Okay, that's a choice. We could be big, and maybe our goal is to have as many students as we can. Or we can say, no, we don't want to be big because we don't think we can deliver the kind of education we want to deliver en masse. So we want to be relatively small. So you can set some, so we would like to have by 2030, you know, every year we accept 250 students and no more, let's say. So you can set a target for that. And then you say, okay, how many of these students should start their own businesses within 5 years of graduating? Well, not 100% because that's never going to happen. So, I mean, you don't set yourself up. So you say we want at least, you know, 15% of our students should have started up their own business which has grown or failed in 5 years. And then what about the rest of the students? So we say, so I taught at Northwestern, which is where the Kellogg School of Business is. It's one of the best business schools in the world. They would say, we measure success if companies come to us and snap up our students before they're even finished. They're here, you know, looking for our students and grabbing them. So all of our students get, if they don't start their own business, they get jobs working for somebody else. So that's another thing. So we want to see that. Then the society has certain problems in the area of business and economics, whatever, if they start coming to us and saying, come consult with us. They come to our faculty members and say, okay, we have a problem, come consult with our company. So we want to say a certain number of our faculty members are serving as consultants for companies locally, internationally. So these are things you can measure. And again, you're making choices, because if they consult, then they're not necessarily writing academic papers. You could say, well, no, we want our faculty to be famous people writing in tier 1 journals. Okay, that's a choice. You can't do all of those things. So I'm always afraid when people tell me, oh, we're going to be the best blah blah. I don't know what the best blah blah means. It doesn't mean anything, really. You have to put a sort of actual, like, the best for us means doop, 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 and it doesn't mean doop, 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 doop. So that's important. I don't think bigger is better, but somebody might, and we will have this discussion. At some point, we will have more good students applying than we can accept. And then my colleagues might say, we need another building. We need more faculty. We might say, well, no, we can't. That's not it. We don't want to do that. Or, yes, we do want to do that. It's a discussion.
Mainstream or boutique.
Yeah, so all these things have to be discussed and decided, and then you can actually specify when you say, we will be a top blah blah, what do we mean by being a top blah blah, right? Usually I don't know. Usually that's just really completely meaningless. So unless it has some actual targets attached. So we'll try to attach some targets to it.
All right, so we have 2 more hands, please, 3 more hands. So please pass the microphone to whoever raised the hand first.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
My question, very sorry for the stuff is going on. I'm really enjoying
Mic system is horrible.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the discussion. My question is about, maybe goes to all panelists, but maybe more relevant to architects. Question is about resiliency. How TIMT University's campus is resilient to current challenges. As we all know that current circumstances are not really supporting social gathering, but rather social distancing is more getting mainstream. Yeah? And there's a lot of video technologies and everything, so it also is hugely applied in the education sectors as well as different universities. So how resilient is TIMT University's campus, or did you actually consider this aspect? And this COVID-19 was similar challenges company had also. We know that this kind of challenge will be all the time with us from now on. So some researchers, some says talking about this. And beyond that, we do not have to also ignore the fact that climate is really affecting the doing business in buildings, infrastructures, and everything. So any remedy, any strategies also being considered in particular building the TIMT University's campus, and what would be your thoughts? Thanks a lot.
Perfect. I mean, it's a great question, particularly in this time and era. I mean, I think if I understand, I'm going to try to echo and understand your question, is how does recent circumstances related to climate change and health concerns and social unrest, if I can even throw that in there. I mean, it's sort of, these are big topics that have been, of great impact, and it gets back to the answer is education, in a kind of simple, general way. And so creating, in terms of the architecture, okay, done something that's clearly responsive to climate change. I think, so one of the strategies right now is don't make space you don't need to build. The most sustainable form of design in architecture is reuse what you got. So I'm not going to explain to you all the strategies right now because they're under investigation. But the bottom line story is make use of what you have, okay, and be flexible and allow the resiliency is the ability to adapt to change. And so again, that gets to the idea of creating flexible kinds of spaces. So don't overbuild, don't make things too rigid, so keep things flexible. And in terms of the social thing, the social unrest, create an environment where different points of view are welcome and people feel like they belong. And that sense of welcome. And this is a kind of aspect that we're very much focusing on in projects in the United States, and it's been ongoing. But the recent circumstances have created this high level of uncertainty. It's hard for students. I actually, for this next generation, in our era, there was a path that was very clearly defined in a certain aspect. You did a certain education, you got a certain degree, there's a certain job waiting for you, okay? And so nowadays, that's not the case. And so the uncertainty that's come across with climate change and pandemic and social aspects and social issues, it's all part of this thing. The learning that this institution is about, a sort of entrepreneurial spirit, I think is very much about figuring out how to deal with what the reality of the situation is. It's not about fantasy planning. So I think the architecture can't be about a fantasy here. It has to be grounded in reality and grounded in creating a place that we've talked about where people want to come together. So I don't want to necessarily hog this thing, because I think this is a subject that I think it could be just an entire entire conference on. And it might be interesting, I think, for the university to going forward, be able to host these kinds of difficult, approaching these kinds of difficult subjects.
Yeah,
I'll probably just add a couple of words to the fact
that how we are reinventing the existing building. Within the last couple of days, we've been asked the question of, can you improve the existing building before building the new campus? And together with our colleagues, we've been inspecting floor by floor, really looking into what else can be introduced. And throughout these 2 years, because we got our license right in the middle of pandemics last year in April, and you can imagine how not easy it was to redesign this building, because this building exists from 2010, and the initial purpose was not education. So within a year and a half, we've been trying to bring some incremental changes into this building. It seems that we have succeeded in a way, but now when expert joined and they were asking us the questions, can you remove this wall? Can you make this wall visible? What do you think about that? What do you think about this? Now we can see that we can reinvent within these 4,000 square meters we have. We can actually do quite a lot. And just 2 words about digital learning, because I've heard in your question something about digital tools and videos and how do we use that. Here we have our students from the university, probably here are mostly foundation students, but students from the last year, there was a question of whether we have to record all the lessons online because students could not visit the campus, and we did so. We have recorded all the videos online, and they were available on Moodle. Obviously, Moodle is just a must for any new modern university. And this became a tradition that we have a Moodle. Not necessarily all lectures are there now because there are no restrictions for visiting the campus. But again, we are looking to alternative ways of learning. Again, YouTube channel. We are very much passionate about making our YouTube channel not just a source of promotion or advertisement, but really make it a source of knowledge, because we have seen very strong institutions that have millions of subscribers and so much useful content on their YouTube channels, and hopefully this discussion will be there as well.
I would say it was a challenge last year. Really, we started actually that very moment pandemic started, and and we wanted to start a normal university. Suddenly we found ourselves we have to open this, and honestly, I have to say at that moment I thought we have advantage, because like it wasn't set up, and so we could actually create everything this, and in that sense I think that we succeeded. Last year we had a good year despite all limitations, because it is sometimes, I'm sure, I mean, it's easier to build something from scratch than rebuild something which exists there. We didn't have existing kind of long time experience which we had to change. We were quite flexible in that sense, but I have to say this few months we spent online, and I was also teaching online also. I don't like really, generally it's not fun. I mean, really, it sucks. And it sucks really, really big way. And really, you have these students, the blank pages on a Zoom, and just names there, and you don't know who is sitting there, and you need interaction between students, and you don't know, maybe a person is just sleeping there or is not there anymore. I don't know. It's such, like, you speak and you see like few faces, and some of them you don't see, and no, honestly, I mean, I really kind of lost faith in online learning. Like really, I just thought, like, okay, let's let it go and let never be anything like that, so students can actually come together, you can come and see them, and they can see each other and you, and that's this. But of course we have to be prepared for all the challenges we can see, and and obviously last 2 years showed that there are challenges we cannot see, and then it's flexibility, and in that sense I think being entrepreneurial university, if we are true to our name, we should do it better than others. Thank you.
Yeah, please. I just want to add one very quick thing about sustainability. The thing that's funny about it is that you get credit for doing things, you don't get credit for not doing things, but you should. So when we built our campus in Bishkek, we built a geothermal heating and cooling system, which was the first one anywhere in Central Asia for a big building. And it was great, and it cost a lot of money, and we got lots of applause, a wonderful thing. On the other hand, we built 17,000 square meters, and we got probably 35,000 square meters of use out of it. So we didn't build 18,000 square meters. We saved more energy and were more helpful for the environment by not building 18,000 extra square meters of space than we will ever save from geothermal heating and cooling. But nobody said to us, oh, what great people you are. You saved 18,000 meters that you didn't build, right? So it's funny what people will, people, they want something visible, but sometimes doing nothing is better than doing something, right? And that's what you should get credit for.
Agreed.
Okay, Professor Wachtel has been very modest while explaining his geothermal campus idea, but an interesting story attached to this is that once there was a problem in the heating system of Bishkek city, and then AUCA opened its door for the people of Bishkek to come and reside in the university if they want, yes? So actually this was the first time when we also realized the importance of the architecture. Previously we had, in our mind that when we think about building a new campus, it means that the interior is more important than the architecture, but this was the time when the people of the city and even many students also realized that there is something new. So hopefully we are expecting the similar kind of, something which has its own individual characteristics, which will be a unique project in the context of Uzbekistan, yes. So while listening to everyone, I was reflecting back because I was the student of both of these campuses. I got a chance to study at old campus and the new campus. Yes. And then I was thinking that the demands of local students are different from the international students. Similarly, demands of students who are studying on scholarship and students who are paying from their own pocket, they are different sometimes. Yes. And many things which are not philosophical in nature, but they have immediate pragmatic importance. They are something which matters a lot. For example, coffee matters a lot, food matters a lot, a high-speed internet matters a lot, yes? So in AUCA campus, there were shops where you could buy cheap coffee and expensive, there were franchises from where you could buy expensive coffees and burgers, and during your student times, especially when you are working, sometimes you have money and sometimes you don't have money, so you don't have to travel, somewhere else to find and discover a cheap coffee you could find there. So this, actually AUCA campus worked as a co-working space for me for a couple of months, and I was literally living on the campus, yes, and later I got a chance to study at Middle Eastern top universities, European top university, or Tsinghua University in China, #1 university, top 15, and campus was very big like Stanford campus. But if you have to discover coffee or food, you have to take your bicycle and you have to go somewhere else, yes. And it on philosophical, physically you feel exhausted, and then you immediately want to leave the campus, yes, and you want to go and reside in your hostel room. But in this campus, I used to go early in the morning and I used to leave late at night, and there were some students who were literally living on the campus, yes, and who used to say them that they don't have their house because they are 24 hours at campus. So now I can say that many things which I have mentioned, they were directly related to the architecture. Even the interior architecture facilitated, these spaces so that we could build these coffee shops, or we could put sofas, or these sort of things. So as a student, as a first hand, I am the product of this project, I would say. My suggestions are that we should consider user friendliness, in a sense that there are some things which are immediately demanded by the students, and they should be on the campus, no matter they are related to interior, no matter related to the architecture. And this is the sense of entrepreneurship as well, that people should stay at one place so that they can get more chance to interact with each other, to brainstorm and come up with the ideas.
So mostly that was a comment, right?
Agreed.
Yeah. So if there are, thank you very much for your contribution. We had a hand here and one more hand here. Minding the time, I would suggest that these would be our last two questions, and then we would move to the networking and coffee break. Thank you.
To Mr. Dinner, they were presenting and telling about how to build a perfect campus. Is that one of the factors is flexibility. So, what is the consequence of campus not being flexibility, and is it going to fail? And also, how will it affect on students' studies?
I didn't quite hear all of it.
So the question is, if a campus isn't flexible, what's going to happen as a result of it not being flexible?
What are consequences of,
Okay.
Will the university fail good students?
There's a spectrum. There's a spectrum of success. It doesn't, so, and I think there's somewhere between perfection, okay, and cruddy, okay? The idea is to get as close to perfection as possible. Perfection is, let's just say, an aspiration, but it's not an expectation. And I think part of it is just reaching further. In other words, wherever you are, you can keep going better. You can keep learning more. You can keep interacting more. The fact here, you showed up today, okay? You didn't have to, this wasn't an obligation. You made a choice to be here because you didn't know what you were going to hear. Maybe you were going to hear a bunch of junk. You had no idea what the thing is, but you knew you had an impulse enough to come to this thing because there was a curiosity, okay? And as long as we create an environment that invites people to feel okay to say, ask a question like that, and to say, like, what happens if you fail? I mean, that's the point. creating a place where it's okay to say that. It's like, the answer is, in terms of creating a place and something that's like, is not flexible or whatever, and it doesn't work out. The thing is, failure is just a motivation to fix something, okay? That's the point. It's like, you have a problem, things didn't work out, you know what the answer is? Fix it. So that's the point. Whatever is the thing is, so we're looking at this space, it ain't perfect, but it's good, okay? But we can make it better, okay? And that's our goal. If you keep thinking to make something better, you're gonna be fine. That's how you avoid failure. Just try to get fixed, get back on the horse, if you get thrown off. These are just like human nature. It's nothing, it's not new. The reason why we still exist, because our predecessors got back on the horse, fixed problems. And guess what? The problems are never going to go away. That's the other thing. It's like perfection is like, oh, I got rid of all problems. Now it's perfect. The world is perfect. Never will be perfect. Okay? But you can believe and have faith that things will get better not because you just show up, not because you don't do anything about it. In other words, you have a responsibility to make something better. So if the space doesn't work or it's going to fail, then fix it.
Thank you. Please.
Thank you very much.
Gotta fix these mics.
Some comments and questions. So I'm very respect this idea this campus to accept the campus, but I believe you will fail in your idea to build ideal campus because first of all several peoples and ideal is one is not ideal for definitely you will fail and you will definitely fail after you get it at the end, so you will be disappointed with this what you get. I believe, but I believe that you will do the best, and I believe most of the people will like it, and this is probably your main idea to get. If people when they come they feel home, probably this will be your to get. I believe in future
why don't we just speak?
Concrete world of the building and the concrete and steel. I believe the future of education is mostly like mixed, blended, so-called education, and then the reality, virtual, and everything comes together. As they say, children from 2-3 years old, they taking the phone from the parents' hands and they playing and using them much better than the parents can do. So they will grow up and they will come and they will be better in using of this virtuality considered to our classical students, as they say, in class. So mixed education in the future, definitely. And as it was a good point that how we are going to address this, we tried several times how to make this distance education, and I believe it's very much dependent on motivation of the student. If the student motivated on that side of Zoom, he will definitely not sleep, he will definitely sit and look and write down and everything, so he will try to share the reaction. But it's motivation of our current students, and this is why I'm coming to the question actually. Motivation of our current students is to get a diploma. I believe that your university students will not be motivated to get a diploma because for the entrepreneur it doesn't matter how many diplomas you have in your somewhere in your luggage. So it's not good development itself, but it's good experience and it's good networking, of course. Very much deep networking is a very great people when you can share, and again when people come in one place and education definitely going outside of the classroom. There's a good synergy of people who is from different backgrounds and they join together and create something very great, very cool. Something what happens here actually downstairs. I really love the ground zero definitely. I tried to do it in the University of Warwick. I wasn't succeed, but I tried to do it. So my question is actually how you going to
what student?
People in schools are not able to study
Select
themselves.
students.
Yes. They don't have self-education capacity or ability. They use it to be so-called classical teacher-centered education, and not this flexible kind of different type of methods. But you expect to get really the good students. I remember when Shazot Chermakov, Prince of ICT, was rector in Higher University, he told me that he can find a good teacher will keep the good students for even the small number, I don't know, 150 maybe students graduating from the schools with a good level of English and with a good level of physics and mathematics, because they need them for ICT future students. So he tried to build first Lyceum, and then he said he understands that Lyceum is even not enough, 2 years is not enough for preparation for the Inha University. Even Inha University is lower level than Inha University in Korea, and Inha in Korea is not the best university in the world, of course. So we still very fail in the schools to give a good production, as we see the schools as a production line from the zero, from the first grade to the 11th. University also shows one of the type of production. So he said that we, in order to get some good input and get giving the good output, they have to start from the 5th grade actually, direct from the primary school. Because primary school in Uzbekistan is more or less comparable with world level. Still very few, not good, but more or less. So how are you going to address this? And by the way, Shamatin at that time got this idea about Al-Khazni school, which is quite near. So try to create this school. We'll see how it's going on, but probably will make face this question in the future.
Thank you.
I don't want to get into a long discussion about educational philosophy because we don't have enough time for it. But what I will say is that even in the absolutely best universities of the world, not all students are self-learners and self-starters. So in my undergraduate class at Harvard, there were a lot of lazy bums who never learned how to learn. So it's not a question of saying, oh, we can't find them here, but somewhere else they can find them. You need to create some kind of atmosphere where that kind of learning becomes the norm. So at the American University of Central Asia, we waste, in quotation marks, pretty much the entire first year teaching students how to be students. We know that they don't know how to be students. They come from the public school systems of Kyrgyzstan or Tajikistan or Afghanistan, and we know they can't do that. So the question is, what percentage of them can you, if you give them the right sort of stimulus, what percentage of them can you get to the point where they start to do that? And the answer is a pretty decent percentage if they're reasonably smart. Is it easier if they're younger? So this year I'm the co-founder of a college, so technicum in local parlance. So we take them after 9th grade, so now they're 15 years old. And it seems to be a little bit easier to beat them up when they're 15 years old. They've had 2 fewer years to be destroyed by the school system. So that seems to be pretty good, and we will work on it. If I had them after 6th grade, I don't know, maybe that would be easier, right? At some point you get the law of diminishing returns. So I think 9th grade seems to be pretty good, but after 11 years, they're not completely hopeless. So it's all a question of recognizing the need to do that, right? So not saying, oh, well, they can't do it. They can't do it, so we can't do anything. Well, that's not a very good approach. So they can't do it, yes. Here's what we can do to induce them to start thinking that way. It means forgetting about saying, oh, they need to learn some stuff this year. I don't care what they learn this year. It's completely irrelevant. I care how they learn this year. So yes, do my students know less than the students who graduated from some other university? Yeah, they know less. Who cares? They can do something with what they know. And the students who graduate from somewhere else can't do anything with what they know. So I don't care how much they know. Your telephone knows more than you know. So, do you want your telephone making decisions? Probably not. So my attitude is teach them less but teach them more how to do the things they need to do, and many of them will respond to that. Not all of them, and they will respond at different levels. Some will really get it, and others will know it intuitively. I mean, for better or for worse, you know, no one had to teach me that. I kind of figured it out on my own, but you can't expect most people will figure it out on their own, so we do that. And then that's the job of how we train our faculty to work with our students, and this is the one thing I don't like about working with these British partners or other partners, because they have their stupid lists of things the students have to know and do. And that's where I really get annoyed, because they don't know what my students need to know. They don't know what my students need to do, because their students are in London and their students are different than my students. And so they drive me crazy, but it's a long conversation. So we have a lot of work to do at all universities or all colleges. The question is, do we realize that we need to do that work? Are we willing to do that work? And are we willing to recognize that it won't always be successful, but if we don't do it, we will almost always not be successful. So I think the team understands that. And I think the foundation year program, that's where it really has to happen. That's the most important year. By the time they get to be their last year, it's totally unimportant. Either they figured out how to do it on their own, in this case you don't have to teach them, or they haven't figured out how to do it, in which case it's useless to teach them. Right? Okay, by that point it's definitely too late. The first year, it's not too late. And there are things we have to, so they need to learn English better, let's say. That's just, English is boring. I mean, you have to learn it. But other things, you have to really get them to think and work. Hopefully we can.
Yeah, well, you can listen for Andrew for hours. He can talk and talk.
I can talk for hours.
And I think this is really crucial, that when you create an environment where smart people come and start sharing their thoughts, one perfect day your students will learn something. And I think that's really about creating wonderful institutions where you have a proper values and a very good environment where people can freely share their thoughts, and they are okay to say something not in a perfect English, but they improve. They have this environment friendly environment where you actually stimulate them to express their thoughts, make their pitches. Obviously their first presentations are not going to be ideal. Let's remember ourselves when we were 18 and 19. We would probably we wouldn't do even the half of what they are doing now. So just again to summarize, I personally enjoyed this conversation, and I don't want to say that we are closing it down. I really would like to invite everyone to that part of the space, and would like to thank our guests. Henry, would you like to say something, or no? Okay.
I guess, okay, well,
yeah.
I was just going to,
I just want to say how much I learned. I mean, this is, you know, this is a great learning experience. This isn't really a classroom, okay? But I do think one thing I maybe learned, I think I could maybe answer better their question, like what makes a perfect campus. A perfect campus is a campus that's the best out of imperfection.
Thank you very much. Let's cheer and thank our guests. And thank you very much for being here this evening. And let's move towards a little bit of tea and coffee.
Perfect campus has a better sound system.
Thank you.